Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. There was a knock on the door. My body moved faster than my brain. Before I could even react, I had already opened it. Ryan stood there, his face flushed, his breathing rough and heavy. His eyes were dazed, his expression filled with pain and frustration. His gaze was damp, and even though he was trying his best to suppress it, the desire in his eyes was impossible to hide. I froze. Wasn't this the exact scene from my previous life? With a hoarse voice, Ryan said, "Emily, help me." His voice trembled slightly. Anyone could hear how hard he was struggling to hold it in. The way he tried so desperately to restrain himself while pleading helplessly tugged at my heart. But as I snapped back to my senses, memories from my past life flooded my mind. I felt like someone had grabbed my throat. I couldn't breathe. Ryan stood there alive once again before me. "Emily, help me, please." The lust-filled tone in his voice pulled me back to reality. Before his hand could reach the back of my head, I slammed the door shut and ran into the bathroom. I immediately turned on the faucet, pulled out my phone, and dialed the police. The call connected quickly. I whispered, "Hello, I think my friend's been drugged. Please come quickly. The address is..." When I came out of the bathroom, Ryan was still outside, desperately pleading. He banged on the door hard, his voice filled with both agitation and helplessness. "Emily, haven't you always loved me since we were kids? How could you bear to watch me suffer? Please help me. I can't take it anymore." His voice grew more and more frantic, his breathing faster and faster, and the banging on the door got weaker and weaker, as if he really was about to collapse. But I stayed rooted to my spot in the room, unwilling to move an inch. Ryan had no idea that my love for him was already something from a past life. He didn't know how miserable my death had been back then after being forced to become his so-called cure. Cold sweat soaked my palms as I kept reminding myself, "Emily, you absolutely cannot go down that road again." Ryan quieted down for only a few minutes before growing frantic again. He started slamming against the door, trying to break in. I grabbed a bottle of beer and smashed it, tightly clutching the jagged glass. I told myself if he really burst in, I'd stab him without hesitation. No matter what, I wasn't going to let history repeat itself. "Why aren't the police here yet?" Bang, bang, bang. The door frame and even the wall began to shake with each hit. As I watched the door sway more and more violently, my heart climbed into my throat. Then came a loud crash. The door was smashed open. Broken wood, splinters, and bits of wall plaster scattered everywhere. The door hung crookedly on the frame, swaying with a sharp creak. Ryan's eyes were bloodshot as he staggered toward me, muttering, "Emily, don't be scared. Help me. It'll be over soon. You'll feel good too." I backed into the corner, but I still couldn't stop the distance between us from closing. Finally, he was right in front of me. I raised the broken half of the beer bottle, aiming it at him, my voice trembling with sobs. "Ryan, don't come any closer. What are you trying to do? I'm scared. If you take one more step, I won't hold back. Please just go back. I'm begging you." He smiled strangely, his expression twisted. "Emily, didn't you love me the most? How could you bear to hurt me? Right. Help me. It'll be over soon." As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed my collar, trying to rip off my clothes. At that exact moment, I seized my chance. I aimed the sharp glass right at his lower abdomen. Just as he violently tugged at my shirt, I finally heard it. The sound of police sirens blaring from the door. Right after that, I saw the police officers rushing toward me. But Ryan acted as if he hadn't heard a thing. He leaned his face down toward mine, trying to kiss me. In that moment, without hesitation, I drove the sharp end of the broken beer bottle into his lower abdomen and twisted it hard. Blood gushed out instantly, flowing along the bottle onto my hand, dripping onto the floor. I could almost hear the sound of the blood splattering. "Ah!" Ryan screamed in pain. I immediately let go, clutching my chest as I crouched to the ground and burst into tears. "Ryan, what were you trying to do? I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." The police quickly subdued Ryan and threw a jacket over me. One of the officers gently comforted me. "It's okay now, sweetheart. You're safe." I collapsed against the officer, wailing uncontrollably. The tension that had been wound so tight inside me finally snapped. In my heart, I thought coldly, Ryan, let's see how you spin this now. Ryan was Rain's beloved boyfriend. She had been the one to drug him, then found an excuse to leave, deliberately leaving me alone with him at the resort villa, all to test whether Ryan could remain faithful. I stayed at the station to give my statement. Ryan was taken to the hospital for wound treatment and a full physical exam. After the results of his blood test came out, the police began investigating everyone who had traveled with us. While resting in the waiting room, I closed my eyes, lost in memories of my past life. Back then, when the noise outside the door had stopped, I had been terrified something had happened to Ryan. I opened the door to check on him, only to walk straight into his trap. He knew I had loved him since we were kids and would definitely worry for his safety and come out. As soon as I opened the door, Ryan charged in. He was terrifyingly strong. He shoved me down onto the bed and tore my clothes to pieces. He forced himself on me again and again. It lasted for over an hour until he finally growled and stopped moving. By then, I was already covered in injuries, bruised and battered by his reckless violence. That was when Rain suddenly barged in with the others who had left earlier. Seeing the wrecked room, she broke down in tears. Ryan, Emily, you two, how could you? You disgusting pair. Have you no shame? Rain turned to leave, but Ryan, not wanting to let her go, grabbed her arm and pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. With a look full of guilt, he gently wiped away the tears sliding down her face and murmured, Rain, it's not what you think. I can explain really. Emily was just someone I used to relieve myself. I don't even know what came over me. I must have been out of my mind. Or maybe Emily did something. Maybe she drugged me. Yes, that's it. That must be it. I sat on the bed in shock, already overwhelmed with shame from being caught, and now completely dumbfounded by his sudden accusations. Instinctively, I tried to defend myself. It wasn't me. I don't know anything. But no one was willing to listen. They all stared at me with hostile, disgusted eyes, as if I were some filthy creature. One of them sneered. Wow, didn't expect you to be so shameless. You knew Ryan and Rain were a couple, and you still seduced him. What? Desperate for a man? Maybe I should introduce you to a few guys. Get it out of your system. Another one jeered. With how horny she looked, you think 2 would be enough? Try 20, someone else added. They all chimed in one after another. Their filthy words cut into me like blades. And Ryan, he didn't say a word. He just kept comforting Rain, focused solely on her. Rain, he cooed. That bag you like, the limited edition one, I'll buy it for you. Okay. I'll take you to meet my parents. Let's get engaged as soon as possible. Okay. Rain began listing one condition after another. Only after getting enough benefits did she finally break into a satisfied smile. Ryan's fury, however, shifted onto me. Emily did something so shameless. Shouldn't she apologize to me? He snapped, trying to please Rain. Ryan immediately agreed. He yanked me by the arm, dragged me off the bed, and pulled me in front of Rain, forcing me to kneel and apologize to her. He didn't care that I hadn't had time to properly dress after they all barged in. The bruises all over my body were still clearly visible. The crowd sneered. Wow, Emily. Never thought you were into this kind of thing. After humiliating me to their heart's content, Ryan and Rain left arm in arm while I stood there stunned and broken. My heart was completely crushed. Out of shame and humiliation, I couldn't even bring myself to call the police. I tried to pretend like nothing had ever happened. From that day on, I stayed far away from Ryan and went into hiding to lick my wounds, but they wouldn't leave me alone. One day, Ryan messaged me and asked to meet. He said, Emily, I want to apologize. Wanting closure for myself, I agreed, but I had no idea it was a carefully planned trap. Ryan wanted to prove he felt nothing for me. So under the pretense of an apology, he lured me out. He tricked me into drinking a spiked beverage, then dumped me at a depraved party. He had even bribed reporters to cover the whole thing. Countless photos and even videos were taken. Every other person's face was blurred except mine. I was assaulted over and over again without knowing it. By the time I woke up, the scandal had already exploded. My face was clearly visible in the news reports. Overnight, I was ruined. Like someone going insane. I rushed to find Ryan and confronted him. Ryan, what did I ever do to deserve this? Why would you do this to me? Will you only be satisfied when I'm dead? He looked at me with utter impatience. Dead? Are you saying you want to kill yourself? Or are you trying to scare? If you really wanted to die, you'd be dead already. And seriously, what's the big deal? So a few guys had you and some pictures got out. I slept with you too. Just pretend those guys were me. There are celebrities with leaked sex tapes, too. Just take it as your moment of fame. Rain chuckled sweetly. Emily, are you satisfied now? Ryan alone clearly wasn't enough for you. Hope you enjoyed yourself this time. You know what this is, she continued mockingly. This is karma. Your karma. I stared at Ryan with hatred burning in my eyes. Last time you tricked me into opening the door. You forced yourself on me. But before I could finish, he waved his hand dismissively and cut me off. Emily, who'd believe that? You've liked me since you were a kid. Everyone knows that. If I really wanted to sleep with you, would I even need to lie or force anything? The contempt in his eyes cut through me like a blade. Rain just laughed even louder. My dignity was trampled beneath their feet, crushed over and over again. In the end, I couldn't take it anymore. I slit my wrists in the bathtub and died amidst a storm of online ridicule. On the day I died, news of Ryan and Rain's engagement flooded the media. Ironically, it was partly thanks to me that Ryan's parents finally accepted Rain. They had always disapproved of her and tried to match Ryan with me instead. But after my scandal broke, they were so ashamed and disappointed that they gave up and let the two of them be together. With everyone's blessing, they became a perfect couple. And me, I carried my humiliation into the afterlife. The more I remembered, the more overwhelmed I became. Hatred surged in me like a tidal wave, threatening to drown everything. Just then, I heard Rain's panicked voice at the entrance of the police station. Officer, what happened to my boyfriend? What's going on? It turned out the police were investigating the full story behind everything that had happened. Rain and the others who had left halfway were all located and summoned to the police station. The officer explained, Ryan was drugged. We've brought you all in for a preliminary understanding of the situation. As soon as the words left his mouth, visible panic spread across Rain's face. Drugged? That's impossible. I walked to the doorway of the lounge to catch a glimpse of her reaction. The moment our eyes met, she immediately came up with an idea. It was her. It was Emily. It must have been Emily. She's always been coveting my boyfriend, but my boyfriend never had the slightest interest in her. It must have been her who gave Ryan an aphrodisiac just to make Ryan lose control, so that she'd have to take responsibility. Rain couldn't wait to pin everything on me. She didn't notice the sudden change in the officer's expression. Rain, is it? The officer asked casually. How do you know your boyfriend was given an aphrodisiac? We never told you what kind of drug it was. So, how exactly do you know that? Rain immediately realized she had let something slip out of fear. Panic was written all over her face as she was taken directly into the interrogation room where she stammered through her defense. I just guessed. Emily has always had bad intentions toward my boyfriend. She must have drugged him to force him into taking responsibility. Officer, please believe me. I swear I was just guessing. I have great intuition. It had to be Emily, that shameless bastard. Arrest her already. She lashed out, refusing to let go. But the others who had gone on the trip were already terrified by how serious things had gotten. Without even waiting for the officers to question them, they started spilling everything like overturned buckets. Officer, we had nothing to do with this. We were just out on a company retreat. Rain said she wanted to test whether Ryan could remain loyal to her, so she gave him the drug. Yeah. And Ryan and Emily were childhood friends. Rain's always been jealous. That's why she left Emily at the villa with him. That's right. She even said that even if Ryan lost control, as long as she showed up in time to catch them in the act, he'd feel guilty enough to make it up to her. She told us if we cooperated, she'd thank us properly. We didn't go along with her plan. We just didn't dare report it, that's all. So it turned out that in both my past life and this one, they had always known the truth. They just chose to give in to Rain's sweet facade. Now that things had blown up and they were about to be dragged into it, every single one of them turned their backs on her in a flash. The same people who helped shame and condemn me in my previous life were now standing on the opposite side, scrambling to shift all the blame onto her to protect themselves. After all, between falling for temptation and committing a crime, they could tell which one weighed heavier. The police quickly grasped the situation and identified Rain as the prime suspect. She was detained on the spot. The others, suspected of being accomplices, were also held back for further investigation. Renee began throwing a hysterical fit. What about Ryan? He's the victim. He won't press charges against me. You can't arrest me. She knew perfectly well at this point that Ryan was her only lifeline. Unfortunately for her, Ryan was still in the hospital recovering from the stab wound I gave him. Though Ryan couldn't be there, I had invited 2 other people very closely connected to him. A sharp female voice rang out. Who drugged my son? Ryan's mother had arrived. Behind her were Ryan's father and their family attorney. The moment she saw them, her legs buckled. I understood exactly what she feared. She was desperate to marry Ryan. But if his family found out she had drugged him, her dreams of becoming a part of the family would be over. Ryan's mother locked her gaze on Rain. Without hesitation, she stormed up and slapped her hard across the face twice. Her eyes were cold, her voice sharp. I knew you were bad news from the start. You tried to seduce my son. That was bad enough. But you actually dared to drug him, Ryan's mother shouted. Officer, you need to thoroughly investigate her. Who knows what kind of low-life background she comes from? Maybe she was trying to scam us for money. Or even worse. Rain's face turned pale. Ma'am, please listen to me. It wasn't me. I swear it wasn't me. It was Emily. Emily did it. Even at this point, Rain still tried to push all the blame onto me. But Ryan's mom immediately cut her off. I've known Emily since she was a child, she said coldly. She's the daughter-in-law I've always favored. If she wanted to sleep with my son, I'd have bathed him myself and sent him to her room that very night. Tell me, why would she need to stoop to such disgusting tactics? Rain was taken away screaming, and only then did the room finally quiet down. Ryan's mom pulled me into a gentle hug, her face full of regret. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. You must have been terrified. Don't worry. When your Uncle William gets back, I'll have him break Ryan's legs to make it up to you. That useless brat. How dare he treat you like this? Ryan's dad added. Don't worry, I'll make sure he apologizes properly. But instead of an apology, what I got next was Ryan's rage. When he found out Rain had been arrested, he didn't even care about the wound on his abdomen. He immediately pulled himself off the hospital bed and shouted at me. Emily, what the hell is wrong with you? Why did you send Rain to the police? I'm the one who almost hurt you. Not her. Why are you going after her? She's just a girl, and she's been locked up all night. Do you have any idea how scared she must be? I have to get her out. He ripped the 4 from his hand and tried to run out of the room. Ryan's father had finally had enough and slapped him hard, knocking him back onto the bed. I tried to hold back the nausea rising in my throat and said gently, Uncle William, please don't hit him. It's my fault. I overstepped. I just saw how out of control Ryan was and I got scared. I was afraid he'd collapse or miss the critical treatment window. That's why I called the police. At the mention of this, Ryan's mom grabbed a set of lab reports and slammed them into his face. You have no idea how serious this is. Look at this. Do you know how much damage this stuff could have done to your body? If you had ingested more, your kidneys would have already failed. Emily saved you. And instead of being grateful, you have the nerve to yell at her. She glared at him. You should apologize to her, not just for today, but for that night too. How could you even think of doing something like that to her? If the police hadn't shown up in time, who knows how far things would have gone? Ryan turned his head and mumbled, So what? Emily's always liked me anyway. Even if I did something, she wouldn't have minded. Uncle William's face turned red with fury. He raised his arm again. Ryan quickly put on a pitiful expression. Dad, go ahead and hit me if you want, but please get Rain out of there. If not, I'll tell the police I took the drugs willingly, that it had nothing to do with her. I'd like to see if you'd really watch your son go to jail. He pointed a finger at his parents. Mom, Dad, it was Emily who stabbed me. Not only are you not helping me, you're siding with them. I'm your son. Rain is your future daughter-in-law. Emily's just an outsider. But before Ryan's father could bring his hand down again, a dark figure suddenly burst into the room and tackled Ryan, pummeling him with punches and kicks. Blood streamed from his nose and mouth. He saw stars and couldn't even stand up straight. When I looked closely, I saw it was my dad. The moment I saw him, I broke down completely. Tears streamed down my face like a flood. Dad. I sobbed as I threw myself into his arms. Why did it take you so long? I was so scared, Dad. I cried. He gripped my shoulders, checking me up and down several times to make sure I wasn't hurt before finally pulling me into a firm embrace. He gently patted my back to calm me down while saying in a cold, stern voice, Ryan, what you did amounts to attempted rape, and you still have the audacity to act like you did nothing wrong. Let me tell you, I'll make sure you end up in prison and rot there. Ryan's parents knew they were in the wrong and didn't dare speak up to defend him too much. Uncle William snapped, Ryan, apologize right now. Ryan muttered a reluctant, sorry. My father's face darkened. That's what you call an apology. Seeing this, Uncle William gave Ryan a hard kick in the back of the knee. Caught off guard, Ryan collapsed to the ground, landing right on his knees in front of me. His eyes turned red from the pain, and though his face was full of anger, he didn't dare say a word. My dad stood in front of me protectively and said coldly, You think just kneeling makes up for what you did? You wish it were that easy. He turned to the rest of the room. As I said, I've already reported Ryan for attempted rape. Everything will be settled in court. Panic instantly set in. Ryan turned pale and looked at his parents. Mom, Dad, I'm not really going to jail, am I? I don't want to. Please don't let them send me away. My father led me out of the room. Ryan's parents, knowing they were at fault, didn't dare stop us. They could only stand there and watch as we walked away after giving Ryan a proper beating. They had already been upset about Ryan being drugged. Now seeing the mess he had become, they absolutely loathed Ryan. No matter how much Ryan begged, they refused to protect him anymore. But with their influence, Ryan was never actually detained. He remained out, supposedly recovering from his injury. Unable to persuade his parents, Ryan came to find me in secret. Emily, I really don't get why you're pushing this so hard. What's there to investigate? I didn't even do anything to you. If anything, you stabbed me. Shouldn't I be the one holding you accountable? He sneered. And seriously, if I'd actually slept with you, wouldn't that be what you wanted? Shouldn't you be happy about it? What are you trying to achieve by making such a big deal out of this? I took a deep breath, finally confirming what I'd long suspected. Ryan was completely out of his mind. Without a word, I lifted my foot and kicked him hard in his not yet healed stomach wound. I didn't hold back. His wound split open again, and fresh blood soaked through his shirt within seconds. I crouched far away in a corner, clutching my head and shouting, Don't come near me, Ryan. Stay away. I looked so terrified, like I'd just suffered some major trauma. My dad rushed over and, seeing the scene, immediately had Ryan, still clutching his stomach and howling in pain, dragged out of the room. When Ryan's parents arrived and saw his pitiful state, then thought about what had led to this, they didn't blame me. Instead, they repeatedly apologized. Emily, Ryan's mother said, trying to soften her tone. He wasn't thinking clearly. Please forgive him. My father was still seething. He clenched his jaw and shot back. Forgive him? How much more forgiving do you want me to be? I didn't beat him to death. My daughter didn't stab him fatally. Isn't that generous enough for you? Ryan's parents left with their heads down in shame. I was furious too. I regretted not stabbing him deeper back then. At least then he wouldn't have bounced back so quickly to keep bothering me. Seeing Ryan's wretched state only made his parents hate Rain even more. Under their pressure, the case was soon brought to trial. Rain was charged with illegally purchasing and using a controlled substance, which led to serious consequences. But because Ryan submitted a letter of forgiveness on her behalf, she was only sentenced to 4 months in prison. Though Ryan had committed assault, he was also considered a victim in the case. Since he had no intention to commit the act and had been drugged, He was only required to pay me financial compensation. I thought it over and convinced my dad to accept the verdict. After all, we both knew they were never going to pay a heavier price. It was better to let them get out sooner, to fall even harder. The sooner I could get my revenge, the better. After all, I genuinely wanted both of them dead, and I really didn't feel like waiting any longer. I needed to carefully think about what to do next. During those 4 months, in an effort to help Ryan forget about Rain, his parents tried introducing him to all kinds of girls. Sexy, cute, athletic, intellectual, curvy, skinny, everything you could imagine. They were hoping one of them would catch Ryan's eye and pull their son back from the edge. But unfortunately for them, none of their efforts worked. I had already spread word about what happened, how Ryan had been drugged by his own girlfriend and almost committed an unforgivable crime, yet still willingly stayed by her side. Their past loving relationship had been widely gossiped about, and now the mere mention of Ryan's name made people flee in the opposite direction. Even the few who, out of politeness, agreed to meet him, only did so out of respect for their elders. Their meetings were brief and half-hearted, clearly just to satisfy parental expectations, but there were always a few girls who couldn't help bringing it up, asking why he'd still be into someone who had drugged him. At first, Ryan had hoped for understanding. He'd share stories of his so-called romance with Rain, saying things like, "When I first met her, I casually said I was hungry. Instead of taking me to a fancy restaurant to show off, she brought me home and cooked a bowl of instant noodles herself. You know, no girl had ever cooked for me before, not even my own mom. That bowl of noodles tasted like home." He spoke with deep emotion, but the girls just stared at him in disbelief. Their expressions turned awkward. To them, his so-called deep connection was just absurd. You'd think Rain had saved his life or something. But all this over a bowl of instant noodles. They couldn't understand it. A match made in lunacy. Someone even muttered once that Ryan would also blame me for Rain's prison sentence. She ended up in jail because I failed her. I couldn't protect her. It was all Emily's fault. She wouldn't let things go. Nothing even happened, but she still wouldn't stop. If she hadn't called the police, none of this would have happened. The girls listening were completely stunned. Piece by piece, word spread that Ryan might be mentally unstable. People began looking at him strangely, cautiously. Compared to everyone else, Ryan increasingly felt that other women were all boring and shallow. Only Rain truly understood him. Only Rain was his destined one. So he waited day and night for her to be released, dreaming of their reunion. His parents were so stressed their hair started turning white. Soon, the 4 months flew by, and Rain's release date arrived. Ryan planned to personally pick her up from prison, but his parents stopped him and locked him inside the house. That gave me the perfect opportunity. Rain sat across from me, her expression dark and sharp. "Emily, are you here to laugh at me?" I shook my head, putting on a gentle, sincere smile. "Of course not. You know, I've always liked Ryan. I've loved him since we were kids. As long as he's happy, I'm happy too." Rain's eyes narrowed. "What are you getting at?" I answered seriously. "Ryan is only truly happy when he's with you. That's why I'm here. To help you two get back together." She looked doubtful but didn't interrupt. I continued. "You know, Ryan's parents don't oppose your relationship because they dislike you as a person. It's just that the gap between you and their son is too big. You can't magically become perfect overnight. But if Ryan's reputation took a hit, if he wasn't seen as so ideal anymore, then maybe they wouldn't be able to object anymore, right?" I stopped there. Rain's eyes lit up instantly. His parents could stop Ryan for a while, but not forever. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the two of them to find a way to meet. Rain used the same trick again. She brought Ryan to a party, and it just so happened it was the exact same party from my past life, the one where I was humiliated. She had arranged everything in advance, planting reporters at the party to secretly take a series of shocking explicit photos. Just a few days later, the news broke. The scandalous content spread like wildfire across the internet. Among the pixelated faces in the photos, Ryan's was clearly visible. The headline, "Heir of the one group spotted at wild sex party," instantly exploded, causing a devastating blow to the one family's wedding and event business. Overnight, Ryan became infamous. With all the media spin, he was painted as a notorious, sex-obsessed predator. His parents panicked. That very night, they filed a police report, claiming their son had been lured into the party under false pretenses, pointing the finger directly at Rain. The police acted swiftly, raiding the location and confiscating a large stash of illegal stimulants. Among them was the same drug Rain had previously used on Ryan. According to witness statements, Rain hadn't just bought drugs once. She'd purchased various kinds, some that caused women to lose consciousness with no memory afterward, and others that triggered uncontrollable aggression in men. She didn't just buy the drugs, she also helped bring drug girls into the venue, earning kickbacks from the organizers. Rain was arrested again and 2 months later, sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. Even with the evidence laid bare, Ryan still refused to believe any of it. He was convinced the whole thing was a setup orchestrated by his parents and me to frame Rain. In his eyes, Rain was still the pure, innocent girl he'd fallen for. He vowed to fight us, the so-called villains, until the very end. He swore he'd wait for Rain's release. He still wanted to be with her. Their love, he said, was unbreakable. His parents began to suspect he was mentally unstable and had him forcibly admitted to a psychiatric facility, but Ryan escaped. No one knew where he went. In order to save the family business, his father publicly announced that Ryan's shares in the company were revoked. Control of the company was handed over to his eldest daughter from another marriage, Wendy, Ryan's half-sister. Once Wendy took over, she acted quickly, launching a series of reforms to restore the company's image. One of the most crucial moves was to sever all public association between the family brand and Ryan, his mother, and even Rain. At first, Ryan's father didn't agree, but after watching his son spiral further out of control, he gave in. Ryan's mother, devastated by her son's disappearance, fell into constant grief, unable to focus on anything else. Wendy used the opportunity to finalize the transfer of all family shares and assets into her name. From then on, Ryan was completely cut out of the one group. Ryan, now on his own, found a job to support himself. He worked while waiting for Rain's release, determined to prove to his family that he had made the right choice. He also wanted Rain to see that he'd been willing to abandon everything for her, that no hardship was too much. What I hadn't expected was that Ryan actually lasted through those 3.5 years. At first, when he visited Rain in prison, she was touched, crying, grateful, and deeply moved. But when she was finally released and saw the life Ryan was living, she didn't even try to hide her disgust. Her face twisted in annoyance. "You're supposed to be some rich young master, and you live in a dump like this?" Ryan, thinking she was just concerned about him, said gently, "Rain, for you, I'd endure anything." Rain, however, raised her voice. "No, I mean, you're a damn rich kid. And you expect me to live in a place like this with you? How could you even think that's okay? You're supposed to be from a wealthy family, and here you are insisting on suffering like some idiot. Are you crazy?" She pressured Ryan to return to the one family and demand money, but he got nothing. Wendy knew exactly what to say. Ryan's father had already moved abroad with his mother the year before. Rain, unwilling to give up, argued, "Ryan is still part of the one bloodline. Isn't he entitled to a share of the inheritance?" But the truth was, all the family assets had long been transferred under Wendy's name. She and Ryan didn't share a mother, and had never grown up together. There was no bond between them. In fact, she despised love-blinded fools like him. Ryan's reckless behavior had nearly destroyed the one group, the foundation of her future. There was no way she'd treat him with kindness. In the end, Ryan and Rain were kicked out without a penny. Rain didn't give up. She kept urging Ryan to go back and beg for money again and again. But as time passed and her hopes wore thin, her attitude changed. Disappointment turned to scorn. She no longer even tried to hide her disgust. "You pathetic loser. Worthless trash." He couldn't even get a share of the family inheritance, making just $6,000 a month. What good was that? Absolutely useless. Rain's insults, one after another, made it clear that Ryan's 3+ years of loyalty and struggle had become nothing but a cruel joke. He went back to the one family estate. Wendy was in the middle of her wedding, a grand romantic affair. She was marrying a highly eligible finance executive, a perfect match. Ryan saw his parents but didn't dare approach them, Not even to say hello. He turned away, defeated, and fled. After walking a long distance, he turned around for one last look. He returned to the cramped, dingy apartment he called home. From inside came sounds that made his face flush with shame. But instead of the rage one might expect, Ryan sat outside calmly and waited. After a long while, a man walked out buckling his belt. When he saw Ryan at the door, he wasn't the least bit embarrassed. He casually pulled out 1,000 yuan in cash from his briefcase and tossed it in front of Ryan. "Hey man," the guy said. "I just screwed your woman, but at least I'm paying for it. Think of this as me buying your wife for the night. Besides, when I met her, you were still a clueless kid." Ryan stared at the cash. He heard every word, but he didn't know what he was feeling anymore. He walked into the room. It was a mess filled with the stench of sex. The smell made him want to vomit. His eyes landed on the stains on the sheets. Then he suddenly chuckled to himself. "Rain," he whispered. "What was the point of all my years of waiting and sacrifice?" Rain, hearing him enter, didn't even turn around. She kept adjusting her clothes as she scoffed. "What? Are you nuts? You waited for me, cut ties with your family, lived like a beggar. And for what? Did you really think you'd make something of yourself? You should have just stayed a rich young master and waited for me to come out. But no, you had to be all sentimental and dramatic. You're pathetic. Honestly, if you hadn't had money back then, I wouldn't have even looked at you." As she finished dressing, she walked toward the door. "Well, since you found out, I won't pretend anymore. Clearly, the Wen family doesn't acknowledge you. And I'm done living this poor, miserable life with you. Wong's waiting for me," she added. "I'm leaving now, and I probably won't be back. Enjoy this pathetic little life of yours." At that moment, Ryan finally understood. No matter where he turned, his life was a joke. His pride had kept him holding on for 3 years. But Rain had just crushed that pride beneath her feet. His heart swelled with rage and hopelessness. He couldn't face going back to his family. Life felt utterly meaningless. So he reached out, grabbed Rain, and yanked her back into the apartment. Then he raised a kitchen knife. As blood spattered across the floor, he thought again about Wendy's wedding. Guests laughing and cheering, the grandeur and romance, the respect and celebration. He thought, that should have been my life. He thought about me. And then he let out a self-deprecating laugh. What life? What did I ever really have? Ryan raised the knife again and slashed his own carotid artery. Later, following a report from a neighbor, police found 2 bodies in a residential building. The man had stabbed the woman multiple times, then killed himself. According to nearby residents, the woman had multiple affairs. Police suspected a crime of passion. They contacted Wendy. She handled the aftermath with indifference, not even telling her father and stepmother. After all, Ryan had been missing for years. Why bring them pain again? I knew Ryan had seen Rain's betrayal as the ultimate humiliation. I knew he wouldn't go running to his parents for help. He'd only fall deeper into despair. In my previous life, I had loved him for so long. I understood him even better than he understood himself. But he never knew that the love he trampled so carelessly had become the very blade that came down from above, plunging through his chest and ending his life. Finally, I had my justice.